The news hasn't exactly been covering this stuff for some reason. Yes, I'm about to give you Catholic news outlets that are showing this, but the secular media hasn't touched this stuff, and there's a number of reasons for that. We are at the peak of political season right now, and the news on that front is literally unbelievable at this point on most things. But also, we are at the, it's frankly the secular media ignores us most of the time, and when they do report Catholic things, it's not usually good. So they're not going to report this most of the time. Sometimes the stuff does make, excuse me, secular news. What we have to about today is, well, something we hear about, unfortunately, all the time from Catholic media and on social media, and that's this all these stories about the mysterious destruction of Catholic property. France immediately comes to mind for a lot of people, with the numerous losses of parishes on a seemingly weekly basis in that country. Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris is the highest profile example of this. Other historic parishes and cathedrals have had the same thing happen to them, and the explanation from the authorities isn't exactly satisfying. And a lot of us have our suspicions about what the cause is of that, but you say it explicitly here on places like YouTube, and they will come down on you like the wrath of God. If you don't believe me, go back to what happened when Michael Lofton told the truth about what happened to Bishop Mari Emanuel earlier this year or last year, I don't remember which, and what they did when he told the truth about that on a very related subject. But here we're not talking about France. I have a couple of stories from the past 6 days in the United States, and it will ring true to those of you in Canada, Europe, and even Australia. You see, across the Western world, our parishes are being targeted by people because, at least in America, they view Catholics as responsible for the unholy sacrament of Satan no longer being enshrined in government law. Yes, what I have to call the sacrifice to Moloch on this platform was stripped of its legal protections and promotions 2 years ago. And since that time, combined with false news stories out of Canada about the treatment of the native peoples there by the church, we've hit a point where seemingly every week in North America, a parish is lost. One parish was destroyed twice in 16 months. So, for context, let's talk about that story first. The National Catholic Register is the one reporting this story, and this is actually an older story from 16 months ago. Do this for context. So, their headline is Catholic Church set ablaze on the anniversary of that case in Orlando, Florida. The fire occurred on the 1 year anniversary of the ending of the 1973 case by SCOTUS that ended that made possible the sacrifice to Moloch. Yeah, they went at they weren't being subtle when they did this, but amazingly enough, the local authorities didn't know at the time. They weren't sure at the time if this was done on purpose. If you can believe that, they didn't know if this was done on purpose. Again, this came from the summer of 2023, specifically on the anniversary of the end of that demonic decision. One of the two most infamous cases in American history, the other being the Scott decision. And they are both similar in one way. They take an entire class of human beings and strip them of their humanity and their dignity for materialistic, instrumental ends for other people. They're very similar cases for that reason. Here are the details of that so we can go to the update on this. Investigators of the Orlando Fire Department are looking into what started a blaze at Incarnation Catholic Church in Orlando, Florida, Saturday night, causing severe damage to the inside of the building. The fire, which was reported to law enforcement around 11:30 p.m. on June 24th, occurred on the 1 year anniversary of the ending of that diabolical case, the 1973 landmark decision that basically stripped an entire class of human beings of their basic fundamental rights. During 2022, in both the months prior and in the wake of that case, Catholic churches and support centers became the target of really bad things by certain activists across the nation. The Catholic News Agency was tracking incidences of such activities, of which there have been 110 since May 2022 up until late June of 2023. If it is unclear if the fire at Incarnation Catholic Church is related to such activities. Well, again, June 2023, folks. That's when that was done. And you could make the case that these things do happen, accidents do happen. Fine. But there has been as that article points out, a number of these cases happening that it removes the plausibility that it was an accident just by itself. The second occurrence for this is exact same parish, happened here it happened this week. Catholic news agency is reporting this one with the headline, Florida parish hit by second fire in 16 months under investigation as having been done on purpose. Because of course it is, because at that point you lose any credibility of claiming it was a coincidence. There's an actual picture. So let's get the details here, and then I will give you some inside information, because I have a little bit that's not from these news articles here, thanks to a patron, actually, who is close to the case. So a Catholic church in Florida has suffered multiple fires in the span of just 16 months, with officials confirming that the second fire, which again shuttered the parish this week, is currently being investigated as having been done on purpose. Incarnation Catholic Church in Orlando, Florida was first hit by a fire last June, causing severe damage to the inside of the building. Masses were moved into parish hall while the church pursues an extensive rebuilding project. This week, however, another fire broke out in the parish's temporary church. On Thursday morning of last week, the parish said on its website that on Wednesday morning, October 16th, a fire was started on and around the temporary altar at Incarnation. And the thumbnail of this video actually has some of the pictures, has one of the pictures taken of that altar on it. The church confirmed the incident is being investigated as purposeful. Jessie Canales, a spokeswoman for the Orlando Fire Department, told CNA via email that firefighters responded to a building fire at 1515 Edgewater Drive on Wednesday. Upon arrival, crews began to vent the building as a sprinkler system extinguished the fire already, she said. The building suffered minor damage. The cause of the fire is under investigation. And regarding last year's fire, she also said the case is still under investigation. The cause of the fire is to be determined. We're unable to rule out if an accelerant was used as part of this. She's being very careful here, because there was proof left that it was purposeful, but for legal reasons, she has to say we're investigating it. But she says, in order for our team to assess damage and restoration needs, we ask that you not travel to the parish for the remainder of this week, the website advised parishioners. So that's what's happening there. Nolo using his, by the way, if you're a channel member, you get a free super chat once a month. That's a YouTube thing. He's Nolo saying, please pray for them. And I agree, please pray for them. And I will show you another thing you can do if you want to do more than pray. This is a give, send, go for that parish. Now you might say, well, how do we know it's real? Well, this one was started by a person named Heidi Broom. It's their name right there. And if you look down, all of the donations are that have their names attached are from that same family. So the person who started it is not going to be profiting from this, because you see that their family members are donating actually fair, money that's actually starts to become real amounts. I will have a link to this in today's show notes at returntotradition.org. If you feel moved by the Holy Spirit to donate to something like that, to this yourself. This actually goes more into it. They said about a month ago, Incarnation revealed their plans to do a rebuild of the parish, included the exterior and interior rebuild. The cost to rebuild would be $5 million, leaving the church with $2 million in debt to rebuild. The cost doesn't include new stained glass windows, which once adorned the church, or traditional bells. It does include a bell tower to have a bell for a future date. And then it talks about the newer fire. This, if you do, they have a goal of $250,000. If you feel moved, please consider donating to the cause for it. Again, I am not getting paid to tell you that. I make no money off that if you do donate. That is to assuage the concerns of the more cynical viewers. Now, I have a channel supporter who is close to someone who goes to that parish, and they gave me a very, very, very short statement from a regular parishioner there who will remain anonymous. Now, here's what they said the effect has been on the parish community. So, quoting the person who actually goes to that parish, who is connected to a patron of this channel. They said, from what they've told me, a very noticeable effect is that the parish had a long-time preschool, kindergarten, and daycare that had to close its doors as a result of changes that had to be made after the first fire. That school was a major source of income for the parish. Also, plans are underway to rebuild the church bigger and better than before. End quote. And that's reflected in the Give, Send, Go campaign. But there's some hardship here because the parish, again, as you just heard from the insider, relied on the school and the daycare they had to help fund the operations of the parish, and they don't have that anymore. So I hope the laity at that parish are stepping up, and I would assume many of them are. So yes, they've been financially undercut by the fire, which is why I have the Give, Send, Go here for your consideration. So please consider that. But that parish isn't the only one in the United States facing this kind of nonsense today. So we go back to the National Catholic Register because they're reporting on multiples of these stories. October 18th, note the date for when this one happened, with the headline, Government officials investigating fire at Catholic Church in Arizona. St. Anthony of Padua Church in Casa Grande, Arizona, reported on Facebook on Friday that an early morning fire on October 18th had damaged the church building. And there's a picture. I mean, that's a pretty serious conflagration. This one was published just 2 days ago. And here are the details. It says the government types are assisting in the investigation of a fire that severely damaged a Catholic church in the Diocese of Tucson last week. St. Anthony of Padua Church in Casa Grande, Arizona, reported on Facebook on Friday that an early morning fire on October 18th had damaged the church building. Nobody was injured, and the firefighters did their job quickly, the Facebook post said. The church will be using its community center for masses as a result of the blaze. The fire marshal told the local NBC affiliate that the fire likely started in a shed on the property. He told the network that the majority of the building had been severely damaged by the blaze. Based on the damage that's occurred in the structure, I'm saying this is probably about a 65 to 70% loss of the structure. A spokesman for the government agency involved in this told CNA on Tuesday that the agency is investigating the case. We're assisting the Casa Grande Fire Department with their investigation, the spokesman said. Now, that's interesting that it's specifically this agency, whose name you definitely can't throw around on this platform, because it suggests there's something else going on here. Because you don't usually bring these guys in unless there's something specifically related to the stuff that they tend to govern. Asked if officials were investigating the fires of possible incidents of it being done on purpose, this organization directed CNA to the Casa Grande Fire Department. The fire department did not immediately respond to a query on Tuesday about the investigation. The New Outlook, the Tucson Diocese news website, reported on Tuesday that the fire chief said officials have, quote, no reason to believe that foul play was involved, though the government figures were assisting due to high dollar loss and the fact that it is a place of worship. Now, that is a refreshing move by government officials, because usually they don't seem to care one way or the other when things happen to us. Now, somebody who did seem to care was the bishop, who issued this statement here, which was for the St. Anthony Padua Parish. It was published on their Facebook page. So here it is. It's very short. It says, Dear brothers and sisters of St. Anthony of Padua Parish, I'm deeply grieved by the damage and destruction that has taken place at your beloved parish church. A characteristic true of Catholicism is that our houses of worship are not simply places where we pray. Rather, they are imbued with holiness by the presence of the Blessed Sacrament, the waters of baptism, consecrated vessels for worship, and the grace that flows from the celebration of the sacraments. The damage to your parish church is a wound that strikes deeply to the soul. However, as deep as the wound may feel today, we must allow the grace of God to heal us, to make us strong, and to unite us in fulfilling His will. The truth is that your beloved parish church was not built on a foundation of concrete, steel, and brick. It was built upon a foundation of faith, hope, and love. And from that foundation arose a magnificent dwelling for God. Brothers and sisters, let us be encouraged by the example of the generations before us, for we will do as they did and once again build a structure to God's glory, a structure that will be beautiful, functional, and a witness to our faith, our hope, and our love today. Again, the wound we have been dealt with is deep, but the grace of God heals all wounds. Be assured of my daily prayers, my deep concern, and my commitment to be of every assistance as you move forward in faith. May St. Anthony of Padua hold us in his heart and present our needs to Jesus Christ our Lord, whose love for us can inspire us to be his saints today. Signed, Edward J. Weisenberger, Bishop of Tucson. So I would ask that you keep them in your prayers as well. Unfortunately, these stories aren't isolated. This seems to happen all the time. And you get to a point where you wonder if the general hostility you're seeing come from a certain segment of the population, if it's not growing. After all, didn't we all just witness a political rally where God was not welcome, that Christians in general weren't welcome? Did we not then find out that that same person who was holding that rally went to a church and somebody yelled the same thing at them, and that person who yelled it was escorted out of the building? The culture is not friendly to Catholics and to Christians more broadly. So please pray for the people of these parishes who are being affected. And if you feel so moved and are able to do so, the Give, Send, Go will be on the sources page at Return to Tradition in just a few moments. We will, Traditionalist Catholics, I suspect these are organized. Yeah, I tend to think that's probably likely too. Like organizes, and there's a Telegram group out there somewhere for people who want to do this kind of stuff, who can go do it, at least in the US and Canada. All right, folks. If there's any other thoughts in the comments, let me know. Otherwise, we will wrap this one up today, just to keep it relatively short. I will have the show notes for you ready to go for the for the Give, Send, Go. Again, I make no money whatsoever off of it. Anyway, thanks very much for tuning in today. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.